This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
I was in Köln last week, and it was right after Hanukkah. It was around Zois Hanukkah, and I was speaking with this other very chashuv yid, a Chassidus fellow, and he was telling me a var about Zois Hanukkah, and I was telling him a var. It goes back and forth, becomes a very fierce ping pong match with who could tell the better var, the fat, And he told me a story, and he definitely won the game. And the story goes as follows. He told me that once upon a time, there was a Polish Yid, Polish man, who had such a beautiful life. He had a wife, he had kids, he had parnasa, everything was literally picture perfect. He had an amazing life. And the Germans invaded, and very quickly he realized that his life is about to get turned upside down, and he knew that he might not, he might just lose everything, including his own life, his family's life. And coming from such a place of literally prosperity, success, happiness, comfort, this quick change was very, very scary to him. But as a Bal B'tachon, as a chassid, as a pious individual, he did whatever he can to hold on to the perspective, to the bitachon, throughout the entire very short process of losing everything. So what happened was the Germans invaded, and immediately they busted his entire business. And his hashkafa was, okay, like my business is gone, they ruined everything, they stole everything, I have nothing left. But at least I have my beautiful family, I have my wife, I have my possessions, I have my house. And then they came and they usurped, took everything out from his house. But he was consoled by the fact that, okay, at least we had the opportunity, we knew we had the foresight, we knew they were coming, we knew the Germans were going to take everything, and everyone at least was able to take a suitcase with all the valuable possessions, at least for that. And I had my family. Level by level, then the Germans took all of those suitcases, and all he was left with was his mindset, okay, at least we're able to take all the valuables and pack them into one suitcase, and we have all of our beloved possessions, those that are most valuable to us, at least we have them one, and we have all of us. And then finally the Germans took that away. And he looked at his family and said, at least I have a beautiful family. And then, Rachmana litzlan la'aleinu, the unimaginable, they took his family. And he said, I think I'm done. I tried. Now I don't even have my family. And he wasn't sure how he was going to make it through. As they were lining everyone up to take him to Auschwitz, he looked at himself, bereft of everything, of his business, of his house, of his possessions, of his wife, of his little children. And he took a deep look inside and he said, is there anything left? Is there anything left that I can still possibly be thankful, that I can have I can unearth some perspective of haidah, of thanks, even in this most eerie, dark, literally facing death situation? And he thought and thought. And as people were being gassed, going right, left, and he was on that line, he had a half hour of time where he was doing a tremendous, serious, deep introspection. And he realized that at least I have a Kadosh Baruch Hu, at least I have God. The war passed, and he was able to rebuild, and he lost all his family. And he would say, for years later, he moved to Tel Aviv, and he was very successful. He rebuilt, remarried, he built a beautiful mishpacha, built a beautiful, successful business again. And as successful as he was, he would always say, I wish I can go back to that moment, to that situation, to that half hour that I had when I had literally nothing. I didn't have my kids. I didn't have my wife. Forget my possessions and my business. And it was the clearest knowledge. It was literally tangible during that 1/2 hour of my life, where I realized that at least I still have a Kadosh Baruch Hu that's unshakable. No one can take that away from me, death itself. And as long as I'm alive, as long as I am living and I can be makir, I have the brain space, the mental capacity to realize that there's a God orchestrating and running my life, I'm the richest man. I lost a lot, but I have God, I have everything. And as successful as he was, and prosperity, and he had a beautiful mishpacha in Tel Aviv, and he was living the dream, and people would come over and say, this guy, everything is perfect, and they wouldn't know of his past. And he would tell people, I wish I can go back, not literally, but almost, go back to that 1/2 hour that he had standing in Auschwitz before he was about to be gassed. Why? Because that was a 1/2 hour that he had the clearest knowledge. That was just me and Hashem, and nothing can take me away from that. When I have Hashem, I have everything. And that 1/2 hour of Dveikus is what carried him through everything. And if he was able to go back to that, he literally, not literally, but almost said he would. Living with Hashem, knowing that Hashem doesn't expect perfection in every situation, but Hashem expects that when we're in situations to try to make it the most perfect as possible. That's a tremendously important, vital avodah. It's very difficult. But when we're able to rise to the test, and we're always tested, we're always seeking, we're always looking, life is filled with ups and downs and disappointment and rejection. And we need more, and we think it could be better. But sometimes when we just look at what we do have, and we can be thankful for our wife, our kids, our parnasa, whatever that we do have, and certainly say that we still have the Eibishter, we realize that there's nothing greater, there's nothing more perfect than that itself. And that mere recognition that we're the most taken care of when we have a Kadosh Baruch Hu. In this week's Parsha, we have a very interesting dialogue between Yaakov Avinu and Yosef Tzaddik. Yosef comes with his children, Ephraim and Menashe, and he says, I want a bracha. And what does Yaakov say to him? What does Yaakov say to his son about his grandchildren? He says, oh, Yosef, Shalom Aleichem, who are these kids? Mi'ela. Who are these guys? Who are these boys? Didn't recognize them, Rashi says, because they were in Mitzrayim and they were under that influence, and Pasha couldn't recognize them. He couldn't tell. His other grandchildren were Talmidei Chachamim, they were Torah-dik, they were learning Torah all day, and these, they looked very different. And Yaakov Avinu, just from a very logical standpoint, he's like, Mi'ela, who are these? Vayomer Yosef al Aviv. Yosef says to his father, Banai Heim, they're my children. Asher Nasan Leikim Bazeh, that Hashem gave me Bazeh. Vayomer Kachem Ne'elai V'Avarachem. Can I ask you a simple question? What changed? Originally, Yaakov Avinu said, who are these kids? And Yaakov Avinu had a chashash, he had a suspicion that maybe they're not miyuchasim. And Rashi says that Yosef Avinu pulled out a shtar miyuchis, a shtar kiddushin, that he was married, that they're kosher children. And then Yaakov Avinu all of a sudden acquiesced, and he said, oh, Yosef said, these are my children. I had them in Mitzrayim, and Yaakov said, okay, great, let me give them kachem na'ilai v'avarachem. I'm going to take them and give them a bracha. What changed? He just pulled out a shtar yuchis. Like there was something deeper going on over here that doesn't really make sense in the Parshas and the Psukim. What changed from one pasuk to the next? Who are these? They don't look right. I'm nervous. Yosef said, these are my children. I had them in time. Yeah, Yaakov knew that before. Then all of a sudden, Vayevarachim. What happened? Hear the question? Says Rabbi Yankel Galinsky. I looked in for a long time trying to find if there's a makar for this, but it seems that it's his own. Unbelievable. Life var. Zokte Bianco Galinsky, be medayik in the words of the pasuk. Very pashut pshat. People try to understand this dialogue in all different pshatim. Pashut pshat. Read it again. Vayomer Yosef al Aviv. Yosef said to his father, Banai Heim, these are my children. Asher nasan elikim, that Hashem gave me, bazeh. A lot of times that word can be overlooked. We don't know what it's really representing. It sounds a little extra, a little, what's bazeh? Says the Bianca Glinsky, that's the key to understand this. Bazeh. In this situation, Yaakov Avinu, what I'm telling you is, I'm telling you a Torah. I'm telling you that I know you're not here to judge me. I know you think my kids look different. But I know, and you know, and I know that you know, says Yosef Tzaddik, that Hashem doesn't measure us, as we've said, by the situations we are in. What truly matters is how we act and grow with and in those situations. And sometimes those very challenges which Hashem puts us in, those situations that we face, allow us, enable us, fuel us the growth potential that we wouldn't have in other situations. Now come back to the pasuk. Says Rabbi Yankel, Asher nasan li'alakim bazeh. That Hashem gave me bazeh in Mitzrayim, in the darkness, where I was thrown out, where everyone else gave up on me. Bazeh in this situation. These kids aren't off the derech. These kids aren't bummy. These kids aren't under a different influence. These kids are bazeh. This is where God put me. And I made the best out of it. And I gave it my all. I live with God. I live with the Eibishter. And these kids are a product of that. Bazeh. And when Yaakov Avinu heard that, this was the chinuch that Yosef Tzaddik gave over to Ephraim and Menashe, that was what ignited the change. Yosef, you have it right. Bazeh. I understand it. You understand it. It's not about perfection. It's about the situation and making it the best possible. It's about being mizdabek. It's about attaching yourself to Hashem, even when it's shver, even when it's dark. Even when you feel cast away and forlorn and forgotten about. And why is everything not working? And why doesn't things seem to be right? But you remember it's bazeh and I'm trying my best in this situation. That's how the Shvatim, that's how Ephraim and Menashe were zeicha de bracha. That's what changed Yaakov's perspective and allowed, he said, give them to me. And says Rabbi Yankel Glinsky, we're often in that same exact situation. We feel like Yosef Tzaddik. We feel we're Mitzrayim. We feel we're locked up. Mitzrayim is Meitzarim. It's those boundaries. We're confined to the Yitzhahara, to the Sitra Acha, to all the Nisyonos, to all the failures. We're in Mitzrayim. We're walking pieces of Mitzrayim. But how do we respond? How do we react? Do we just give up and crumble? Or do we say, no, I'm bazeh. I'm trying my best. This is where God put me. Hashem put me here. Why? I don't know. What does He want from me? I don't have an Urim V'tumim. We're lacking the Shekhinah. We don't have the Beis HaMikdash. But one thing I know is I'm trying my best. Says Yankel Glinsky, we draw from the same thing. If we act, we have that approach of bazeh. I'm in this situation. I'm making the best out of it. Here, we're zeicha to those brachas as well. Not just Ephraim and Menashe, but Hashem says, when we have this, and we demonstrate this, Hashem says, I'm gonna give you a bracha too. Because I know you have the right perspective. I know you know the Makar bracha is me. I'm gonna give you those brachas. As we go, we're starting, Shoivim, we're starting now. It's next week, but the Hasidim get very excited. It doesn't just start by Shmais. It starts by Vayechi. It's like the Shabbos before Shmais. It's the Hachana. And in short, Shoivim is all about working on ourselves, on our spirituality, our Kedusha V'Taira. And I think the crux of it all is this realization. It's all about the Nisayon, it's all about the struggles, about the temptations, and it's about not letting the failures define us, but instead letting the failures shape a bigger, brighter, better future. And when we do that, when we harness, we use that past, not to continue the bad, but to ignite good, that's always what Hashem wants from us. That's the side of Shaidim, Shuv Vanim, Hashem Lekechem, Lashuv. We have this opportunity now to return. And to wrap it up, there's an incredible ma'aseh I just saw, interestingly enough, from Rav Dan Segal. He quotes a ma'aseh from the Shomer Amunim. The Shomer Amunim said about himself that there was a tkufa that he was living in a city in Europe. I forgot which city. Budapest. He was living in Budapest. And during that time, it's a very goyish city. There's like billboards and tumma, and like you walk in the street and just like a terrible situation for anyone who's trying to work on themselves, especially for Inyana Kedusha. And the Shem Emunim every day would have to want to go to the mikveh, had to go to the mikveh. And the Shem Emunim said that the shield, the mental energy that he had to expend in order to shield himself not to look anywhere, was more purifying, he said about himself, than the mikveh itself. Every day he would trek out to the mikveh, and he said more than actually dunking in the mayim tahirim, that journey of resolve, of self-restraint, of working on oneself, of being in that position, being in the situation Hashem put me. I don't know, he didn't know why it had to be such an arduous journey to get to the mikveh of Kedushas Einayim, but that's where Hashem wanted him at that point. And again, this idea, it's not about the perfect situation, but it's about being in the situation and trying to make it as perfect as possible. And sometimes just from the journey, from the struggle, from the battle itself, is more gratifying, is more rewarding, and more purifying than any results. It's that kesher that really brings the brownie points. It's that kesher, that unwavering commitment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to whatever situation is, that I am there for God, that despite the results, despite the end, that in itself, the journey, the process through it, is what Hashem wants, is what's going to be the makar, is going to be the impetus for more bracha. And you should draw from this parsha that when Yaakov Avinu said, Kachem na'alai v'avarachem, he understood that idea of bazeh, of Yosef Avinu saying, I was in this situation, I made the best out of it. And just like that Polish man in the war, that wanted to go back to those moments of Vayechi when he was stripped of everything, he had no clothing on, he had no family, lost everything. And he was able to find this place of acceptance and of Vayechi, even when he had nothing, and that's what he wanted to go back, even in times of prosperity and success. Because when he didn't have anything, it was stripping away everything but getting closer to God. For us as well, we draw from this that when we're buzzed at whatever that buzz at is in this situation, we know Hashem carved it out for us. We know Hashem needs us for some reason to be here, and we embrace it, as we say, as we rock it and do our best as we can. It should be a chus for all of us, for Hashem to in turn give us all the bracha, and we should be zeiche from the Eibishter of Kachem na'alai v'avarachem to be recipients of Hashem's endless brachas.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.